So, let's talk about virtual reality. Today, we're going to dive into a pretty big idea. What if the industry's obsession with making things look real is actually the very thing holding it back from creating experiences that are truly meaningful?
You know the feeling, right? You put on a headset and, wow, the graphics are stunning. It honestly feels like you could be standing on another planet. But then, after that initial wow factor wears off, a lot of these incredible worlds, they just feel kind of empty. So what's missing?
Well, the core argument we're exploring today is that the problem might be the very thing the VR community has been chasing for decades: perfect realism. This single-minded focus on technical perfection might actually be what's keeping VR from its true potential.
And you can actually see this split pretty clearly if you look at the history of VR research. For about 30 years, you've basically had two teams playing on completely different fields. On one side, you've got the tech heads, the engineers, focused on better displays, faster tracking, all the hardware stuff. And on the other, you've got folks studying the human experience, how we actually feel inside these virtual worlds. For a long time, these two camps just weren't really talking to each other.
And that disconnect, it has some pretty big consequences. We get applications that are technically impressive, sure, but as an experience, they're just hollow. I mean, think of a virtual classroom that just perfectly copies physical chairs and a whiteboard. VR can do so much more than just copy reality, but a lot of the time it doesn't.
Okay, so this brings us to the old paradigm, the one big idea that's been the holy grail for VR design for 30 years, and that's achieving a sense of presence.
Presence is that magic trick, It's the moment your brain completely buys in. You forget you're wearing a headset, and you feel like you are truly in that virtual space. And look, that's an incredible technical achievement, no doubt. But the real question is it the end goal?
To see the problem, just try this little thought experiment. Imagine putting on a headset that simulates a completely empty gray room. Your brain will absolutely feel present. You'll perceive the scale and the depth as if you're really there. But then, what do? It's a technical victory for sure, but as an experience, it's a total dead end.
And that's the whole point, right there. Presence shouldn't be the finish line. It's got to be the starting block. It's just the baseline, the bare minimum you need to have in place before you can build a deeper, more meaningful experience on top of it.
So yeah, this requires a pretty fundamental shift in our thinking. We need to move beyond just tricking our senses and start engaging with the most powerful graphics card on the planet, the human imagination.
I mean, think about it. A book has basically zero sensory immersion. It's just ink on a page. And yet a great story can completely transport you. You can feel fear, joy, suspense, all of it generated by your own mind. Researchers actually call this the book problem. How can such a low-tech medium be so unbelievably immersive?
Well, the answer seems to lie in two different kinds of immersion. VR typically relies on what's called weak representation. It just feeds your senses directly with sights and sounds. A book, on the other hand, relies on strong representation. It gives you clues and cues that trigger your memory, your cognition, and your imagination to build the world from the inside out. The most powerful experiences are going to be the ones that can masterfully blend both.
All right, so for moving beyond presence, what's next? This is where the paper we're looking at proposes a really cool solution, a new design toolkit for creators called the 8-dimensional framework.
The core idea is simple but really powerful. It says that any VR medium has unique properties or dimensions. Then a creator can actively control these dimensions to shape the experience. And when that's done well, it creates real value for the user. It's a clear way to connect the tech's potential with the creator's intention and the user's purpose.
And this diagram kind of maps out that whole journey. You start with the basics, right? 2D and 3D space, just to achieve that spatial presence. But then, the framework shows how you can layer on top of that. You start adding more abstract dimensions, like social dynamics, or cultural meaning, or psychological states, to create what the paper calls a sentient space. It's a space that doesn't just exist, but feels alive with purpose and meaning. So how do you actually do this? Well, the framework introduces this awesome idea of designer's dials. Think of them like knobs on a control board that a creator can tune. You can control the flow of time. You can create meaningful places instead of just empty spaces. You can shape social interactions. You can even evoke specific psychological states. You're not just building a world anymore, you're orchestrating an experience.
Let's just take one quick example, the time dial. A designer can choose to make time perfectly linear. That creates a clear, directed story.
Or they could introduce nonlinearity, flashbacks, branching paths, maybe multiple outcomes. That gives the user way more agency and can create things like suspense or discovery. Just by turning this one dial, you get two completely different feelings.
So what does this new way of thinking lead to? Well, ultimately, a framework like this pushes VR creators to stop asking the old questions and to start asking much, much better ones.
And this is really the core takeaway. The question for creators is no longer just, is it realistic? The question is, what is the purpose of this experience? Are we trying to evoke joy, curiosity, empathy? Every single design choice should serve that specific intentional goal.
And this isn't just theory. Look at an acclaimed experience like Horizon of Khufu. It doesn't just put you in a realistic pyramid. No way. It masters multiple dimensions. It plays with time by showing you ancient rituals. It plays with the idea of place by taking you into secret chambers. And it absolutely nails the psychological dimension by making you feel pure awe as you climb to the top. It's a journey, not just a location.
And I think that's the bottom line here. VR's greatest strength isn't about replicating the world we already know. It's about designing entirely new ones with new rules, capable of evoking feelings and understanding that are impossible in any other medium. The future isn't about recreating reality, it's about inventing it. So the only question left is, what worlds are we going to choose to build next?